The 1960 Volkswagen Beetle rolled out into a world that was rapidly changing, yet somehow, this tiny car with its distinctive shape, rear-mounted engine, and air-cooled design felt timeless. By this year, the Beetle had already secured its place in automotive culture as more than just a car. It had become a symbol of simplicity, reliability, and charm. What made the 1960 model unique was not radical redesign, but subtle refinements that made a good car even better. In 1960, Volkswagen's approach remained committed to minimalism and engineering precision. The Beetle's 1,200cc air-cooled, flat-4 engine generated 36 horsepower, seemingly modest on paper, but remarkably capable in the real world. It could handle city traffic with ease, and its lightweight body meant that it felt surprisingly agile despite its modest output. The engine was designed not to overwhelm but to endure, a philosophy that defined Volkswagen's mechanical ethos. Reliability was never a marketing gimmick, it was built into the bolts, the gaskets, the crankshaft. The Beetle's 4-speed manual transmission felt tight and mechanical, engaging the driver in a way that modern automatic cars simply don't. Each gear shift had a tactile feedback, a certain click that echoed the car's engineering integrity. Driving the 1960 Beetle was less about speed and more about experience. The feedback from the steering, the hum of the engine behind you, the upright seating position, it was mechanical poetry. Visually, the 1960 Beetle retained the now iconic silhouette that had become a global symbol. The rounded fenders, split rear windows replaced by an oval in prior years, and the bulging headlights set high on the front wings gave it a face that was instantly recognizable. This car wasn't sleek or aggressive, it was friendly. It looked like something that belonged in every driveway, not just in showrooms. Chrome detailing on the bumpers and trim brought a touch of sophistication without being ostentatious. Everything about its look said honest design. Inside, the Beetle's cabin was a case study in utilitarian elegance. Vinyl upholstery, durable and easy to clean, lined the seats. The dashboard was simple, a single round speedometer flanked by basic warning lights and switches. There was no need for distraction. Everything the driver needed was within reach, and nothing more. The large steering wheel gave ample leverage, essential for maneuvering without power steering. Ventilation was handled by flaps and simple air channels, and the heater was basic but functional. Yet despite the simplicity, there was a certain charm, a purity in design that modern cars often lack. What also stood out in 1960 was how the Beetle transcended borders. From Europe to North America to Asia, it was embraced by people from all walks of life. In the US, it was marketed as the anti-car, a counterpoint to the chrome-laden, fuel-hungry Detroit machines. Volkswagen's marketing tapped into this identity brilliantly. Ads emphasized the Beetle's humble roots, its practical dimensions, and its dependability. The Beetle was never sold on luxury or performance, it was sold on logic and character. The global success of the Beetle in 1960 wasn't an accident. Its engineering was rooted in German precision. The torsion bar suspension provided durability and a surprisingly smooth ride over uneven roads. The floor-mounted pedals were unusual, but they gave the driver a direct connection to the vehicle. The rear engine, rear-wheel drive layout gave the car traction and balance that proved invaluable in snow, mud, and rain. And perhaps most impressively, all of this came in a car that could be serviced by nearly any mechanic, anywhere in the world. One of the defining features of owning a 1960 Beetle was its ease of maintenance. Owners could open the rear engine lid, identify the spark plugs, the distributor cap, the fan belt, and make basic adjustments without special tools. There was no complex wiring harness, no sensors to scan. Just raw mechanical simplicity. And because of that, Beetles developed a reputation for dependability that few other cars could match. It wasn't uncommon for owners to rack up hundreds of thousands of miles with little more than routine oil changes and valve adjustments. The Beetle also became an icon in culture. In Europe, it was a sign of economic recovery. In America, it became a counterculture darling, especially during the 1960s. Long before it was immortalized as Herbie on screen, the Beetle had already achieved cult status. Students drove them, families drove them, artists and engineers alike appreciated their form and function. It was one of those rare cars that didn't divide opinion, it brought people together. Driving a 1960 Beetle today is like stepping into a time capsule. The ignition key slots into a metal dash with a satisfying click. The engine stirs to life with a distinctive whir, and the unmistakable exhaust note rises behind you. The view through the upright windshield is wide and open, framed by thin A-pillars that make modern cars feel claustrophobic by comparison. You feel everything: the texture of the road, the rhythm of the engine, the subtle play of the steering wheel. There's no filter between driver and machine. It wasn't luxurious. There were no airbags, no infotainment systems, no automatic climate control. Yet somehow, the Beetle offered a sense of satisfaction that goes beyond tech specs. It made people smile. It was approachable, like a trusted friend. And for a generation that was starting to value authenticity over opulence, that made all the difference. The 1960 model also marked a point of maturity in the Beetle's evolution. By this year, quality control had improved dramatically. Paint finishes were more consistent. Body panel alignment was better. Electrical systems, though basic, were more reliable. The factory in Wolfsburg had refined its production methods, and the Beetle was now being built in several other countries, each adhering to the same standards. It had become not just a German car, but a world car. What also helped the Beetle stand out was its fuel economy. At a time when most American cars were lucky to get 10 to 12 miles per gallon, the Beetle could manage 30 mpg without trying. It made sense for students, for commuters, for families on a budget. And in places where fuel was expensive, that made a huge difference. It was an eco-conscious car decades before the term existed. The 1960 Beetle wasn't trying to change the world, but it did. Not through revolution, but through persistence. It never pretended to be more than it was. It offered freedom, mobility, and a sense of adventure in a world still rebuilding from war, still dreaming of what the future could be. And somehow, this humble little car became part of millions of people's stories. In hindsight, the magic of the 1960 Volkswagen Beetle wasn't in its speed or its technology. It was in the way it made people feel. Owning one was never about status. It was about connection, to the road, to a simpler time, to the essence of what driving could be. Even now, more than 6 decades later, the Beetle continues to turn heads, not because it's flashy, but because it's genuine. And in an age of increasing complexity, that's something worth remembering.